might be asking yourself, what time is it? On most normal watches, it would say 8:30 a.m., which means you're here on time, and we thank you very much. But according to my watch, if you can see from the back, it's OneDrive time. So we're going to have our friend who usually represents SharePoint, but he's wearing his OneDrive shirt today. And hopefully, nobody has seen a monkey at this convention yet, so we're going to fly him into about that direction and let the show begin. So thank you all for coming. You are at the OneDrive session. This is a pretty big session for the team to show off what they've been doing new. You're going to hear a couple of slides in the beginning just to ground sort of what is OneDrive these days and how does it fit into the rest of Microsoft 365. But we certainly appreciate you coming this morning. Hope you had a great time yesterday. A lot of news in the keynote. You're going to see a fraction of that today, but a lot more depth and a lot more features around what OneDrive is building new across web, sharing, mobile, and just a lot more. Hopefully a couple surprises you haven't seen yet. So again, wanted to make sure you're in the right room. If you're here in the morning, I hope you're in the right room so that you made it. But you're here to learn about what's new and what's coming next for OneDrive. Just to ground it a little bit, and I should take a second. My name is Mark Kashman. I'm on the marketing side of the business, and I focus on what we do in OneDrive All Up and some of what we do collaboratively in the SharePoint world. And we've got Randy and Lauren from the engineering team, and they'll introduce themselves when they get to their sections. One of the things we're seeing and we're hearing from our analysts, and you see it from our own research, and hopefully you see it in how you're working in your organization. As people start to collaborate these days, most often they're now doing it with somebody else, and they're doing it in near or real time. And when they do that, that translates to them being more productive. And so we've got a couple highlights here from Gartner and Forrester that really relate to that. So as you see people wanting to work in these new ways, they're enjoying working with others. They're getting benefit, the value from being able to reuse other people's content, to be able to work in real and near time, and some of the future of what's coming to actually be able to do all of that in-app pulling from other people's work. And so there's a lot going on in this space, and certainly we see the growth in the amount of content that people are bringing, and then of course the expectations of what they do with that content is for that to be a great end user experience. When you think about OneDrive, what is its role in Microsoft 365? And there's really two parts to this. One we'll cover now just to kick things off, and another that we hope after you see some demos, just to ground on what its real value is, not just by itself, but alongside other applications. So we think of OneDrive as the Files app for Microsoft 365. This is where you get access, use, create all your files, not just your personal work files, not just files that are in shared libraries, but all files, even files that you maybe don't necessarily come across, but you have are more in a discovery phase because of the work that people are doing around you. So I work with Lauren and Randy pretty closely, but there may be some of their colleagues that I don't work as closely with. But because they're active with Lauren and Randy, and I know Lauren and Randy, I might start to discover files that are being worked on by other people. And if you think about that, that's a pretty holistic view. I've got my personal work files. I've got files that I've been working on with my team in the team space, and I'm seeing those shared libraries in the same user interface with the same experience. But we certainly see it as a place where beyond your individual collaboration and productivity, broader team collaboration, it's also where you can go and organize and make it easier for you to get back to your work, for you to be able to list and label, to organize and better discover. And all of these files certainly are stored in the same location, and they're using the same experience when you go and actually work with your files, with a lot of the same value of what you can then do with them. And we'll get into more when you see demo and a little bit later in a couple of slides. But it's all founded on the same foundation of great security, great compliance, as much as you want to apply to it, even great governance. So we're going to walk through 3 slides just to kind of orient yourself if you haven't used OneDrive recently, or if you haven't used OneDrive at all, which we hope if there's anybody in the audience, by the end of the session, you'll feel really comfortable and go out and try a bunch of things. But when you think about viewing, co-authoring, or sharing files, this should be a consistent experience no matter where you are, again, across your individual work files or your shared libraries. When you go to whatever user experience, especially from OneDrive, you have a great experience to work with your files in the full rich experience. So we've got a great previewer experience. We've got a great way to share with files on demand. We've got a great way to take your files with you, but not take up all your hard drive space. And with some new innovation that you heard yesterday with differential sync, that'll make it so that it even saves your bandwidth so that as you're making changes, you're not hogging the network. But we do want you to work from anywhere. You'll see Lauren give you a couple demos on mobile. Of course, you can go through the web, PC, Mac, Android, iPhone, wherever you're getting your work done, wherever you are, or as you transition through the day, you'll be able to access your files, and not just to view them, but actually to edit them, to share them, and even to mark up on things if you want to add annotations. And of course, if you're using more of a corporate device and you're taking photos while you're on site, all of those files can be backed up, not only just to back them up and protect them in the cloud, but to then take advantage of all the stuff that you see above, to be able to share the photos in a more performant way as a link, not as an attachment, again, hogging up other people's inboxes. And the last thing is if you're on either Windows 7 or thinking about moving to Windows 10, we've got a great capability called Known Folder Move that will help you get your desktop files and help you as a company get more compliant, getting your files up into the cloud to be backed up, protected, but then to be in a better place so you can do all the things that are the real core value to be able to collaborate better with whatever that file type is, and especially in the office space, to be able to do all of that co-authoring and real-time experiences. When you work together, we want to give you the capabilities, if you've got it turned on for your company, to be able to share, of course, internally and externally, and not have it to be just an on or off switch. You can control who can share, whether you want to share externally, and if you do, you have a great experience to be able to bring people in a really easy way without requiring them to go through a lot of hurdles. Especially when you do this externally, the hurdles that you used to have to jump through to sign up for a Microsoft account, now you can do with just requesting a code more through a two-factor authentication, which I think people are getting a lot more accustomed to, and it's much easier and it's a lot less to expect on the recipient's end. When you do this, you can think of terms of co-authoring across the different devices, so you can co-author from mobile, from web, and of course the desktop, and you don't have to require the other person to have a desktop client or a rich client. They can actually do all of this through the web on your behalf. So you're sharing your file from your environment and giving them the tools to work with you without having to have them have something if they don't have that. And you certainly want to go and do this in a more social way. So with app mentions and the ability to see the activity on the file, to be able to have comments inside the file, that's coming. You'll see that across a lot of different file types. But you'll be able to keep a rich dialogue that stays with the document. And as you share it and bring other people in, you'll be able to see what other people think directly about that file. And then finally, from an organization perspective, we have what we call the Microsoft Graph that's powering the back end to have this be a much more intelligent file experience. So when you go to discover a file, it's truly based and relevant to you as you're signed in to give you the most personalized experience to access files that we think, by nature of the service, is important to you. And we tune that every day so we give you the best experience to find content that other people are working on that may be of value to you. There's a lot of work in the recent space. You'll see that today in the enhancements to the recent. But anywhere you go, when you go into the backstage of Office, when you go into your office.com, when you go into any real experience that is driven by this files experience, you'll see your most recent used files and be able to get back to work in a much quicker fashion. When you get to shared, and it's either shared by you or shared to you, it's a real powerful pivot. Instead of digging through your email to find an attachment or a link, it's actually in a pivot where you can see, here are all the files, and you'll see some enhancements later onto that. Organizing, certainly with metadata, is a big enhancement with the files experience being pervasive everywhere. If you think about the different types of metadata, or as you move through the life cycle of a content, you're going to have a lot of metadata applications that you want to build. And if you start and do that in OneDrive, or you leverage that because it's been done in a team site, you would certainly see that through the OneDrive UI without feeling like you're missing something. So moving on, I just want to show you a couple of things, but I promised Randy and Lauren I wouldn't actually show OneDrive because they're going to show you OneDrive. So I'm going to show you OneDrive without showing OneDrive. So the first thing I want to show you is if you sign into Office 365 and you haven't designated where you want it to take you, it'll take you to office.com. And office.com is actually superiorly powered by OneDrive. And I'll show you why. So at the top, of course, I can get to the different apps. I told them I wouldn't click on OneDrive, but there it is as an application. So I can click into it. But if I scroll up, you'll see that I can start to do what you would expect. I can upload and I can open documents. I can start new documents right here, whether it's a Word document, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. I can scroll down and I'm starting to see items that are recommended to me. And I can actually see now items that are based on my recent history. I mentioned the most recent list shows up in a lot of places. One of them is here in office.com. If I click over to pinned, I can see a couple items that I'm tracking. Shared with me is that pivot. Again, the search engine knows things that have been shared with me, and it's going to represent it here as documents that were shared, and I can actually start to see hints of what's happening with that document. And then that discover pivot is, here is all this activity that's happening around me. So I can see files that are not necessarily ones that I viewed or maybe would come into contact with a specific individual, but because other people are working on valuable content that's active and being actively shared or worked on, I can see that. And then down at the bottom, I can see my recent folders, and I can jump to my OneDrive, and I can see all the things that are happening in SharePoint from more frequent sites or sites that I follow. They would take me right into those libraries that are a part of those sites. The other thing I want to show you is we have a new file viewers experience, and if I go into my OneDrive, if I go into my demo OneDrive, you can see that we have the files viewer experience in web. You'll see it in mobile, and this is what it looks like on the desktop. I'm on a Windows 10 machine. This is a Surface Pro, and I'm seeing images coming from, this is a DICOM image, a .dcm. This is a video file. This is a file from Adobe Illustrator, and you'll see the different extensions mean that we have 320 file types that we can render in a beautiful fashion, and this is all because it's powered by OneDrive. Last thing I want to show you is with these files, and I'll show you my real experience. These are all files that we have in our shared site, which is our SharePoint Conference 2019. There's about 320 people at Microsoft that are accessing this content, not all of it. But if you notice, a lot of blue clouds means not a lot of this is actually on my desktop. And if I click in to session content, you'll start to see that there are only 3 files that I've brought down. So those may be a couple of megs each, and those are only taking up that amount of space on my hard drive. You'll see the green checkbox. And at any time, where yesterday we already gave our pre-conference, so I'm going to put that back up into the cloud. I'm going to say free up space. And now that file is, of course, backed up to the cloud. If anybody makes changes, I'll always be up to date. I have full visibility here, but it's not taking up any space on my hard drive. And that's something where I could go into a document library of a team site. It may have a few terabytes of content. I have full visibility to it. Again, I'll go back to all the content. This is everything that we've done for the conference. All FAQs, all booth duty assignments, all of the sessions, all imagery that we're using, everything is in this library. So I have it at my fingertips, but it's taking up almost just a couple of megabytes on my hard drive. So that's me showing you OneDrive without showing you OneDrive. So turn it over to Randy. We'll go back to slides.
Thanks, Mark. My name's Randy Wong. I'm super excited to be here. Over the last 6 months, we've shipped a lot of great features. One of my favorites, Mark showed Files on Demand. We shipped Mac Files on Demand. It was our #1 feature on user voice. Our #2 feature was Camera Upload for Business, and that's also been shipped. Known Folder Move really is pivotal for the modern desktop deployment, and we're really excited about some announcements we have on Known Folder Move. And Mobile Capture with metadata and meeting note sharing, it's awesome features. So now's the time that we're really excited to share what's coming and what's new and what's next. So we have so many demos across Lauren and I that we had to split it up into 3 sets. The first set is going to be about intelligence, how we're infusing intelligence into the OneDrive experience to make your users more productive. Secondly, we're going to talk about collaboration and introduce a new way of collaborating on files. And thirdly, we'll talk about mobile and how we're making the OneDrive mobile experience better, but also all the files experiences in Office 365. So I'll transition over to my machine. And really, a great product starts with great design. And we've made some amazing visual updates to the OneDrive web experience. You can see the new header, the new left nav bar, but there's a couple other things that you'll notice. You'll notice the new product icons and the new cool OneDrive icon. Who likes the new icon? Yeah. But there's another thing that you might notice. We have different color folders. These are golden folders, and we're really proud of these. These are going to start showing up across all your experiences in Office 365, so you have that consistent, coherent experience. When we think about bringing Fluent to OneDrive, it really is about simplicity and coherence. So those users have the same experience across SharePoint, Teams, Outlook, OneDrive, all their experiences. But we're not just showing you visual updates. We also have functional updates on how intelligence is coming into the experience, so you have to work less to do more. One of those examples is bringing Microsoft Search right into the OneDrive header. And here you see, I don't even have to type in any characters. It already knows the recent files that I've worked on. And this is really the first step in personalized search. Like you see on office.com, soon you'll see people here. You'll also see files that aren't on your OneDrive. The next one that's really cool is recommended. How many of you have seen recommended before? Great, well, you probably saw it on office.com originally. We're bringing it to OneDrive. And recommended really highlights that these files are in the cloud. And when files are in the cloud, they're alive with activity, they have data, there's people, and we can really showcase this by showing some of the activity that's happening on these files. Recommended takes the Microsoft Graph and looks at the people you work with most frequently and the documents that you're working on and shows you those in a relevant way. You can see a couple of these. Megan Bowen has mentioned me, so that means I probably should look at this. But I'm kind of lazy. I don't really feel like reading the whole document today. Oh, I have this hover card, this file card. And this file card is kind of my cheat sheet. It gives me information about the file, including that this file is popular with my colleagues. It also gives me average reading time, 1 minute. I think I can handle 1 minute. But it also gives me at-a-glance information. And really, all that I care about for the financial report is that it's under budget and high costs are avoided. So I don't even have to open the document. I already know what's going on. I'm good with that. You also see, as I scroll down a little bit, activity highlights. So it shows me who's edited the file recently, but also gives me a recommendation because it knows the people I work with and tells me to share with them. Now, sometimes there might be a file, maybe Lauren was working on a file with some of her colleagues, and I don't remember where that file is, but I know that it was shared to me. So I go to the shared pivot. And what you'll find is the new popular around me view. And this, similar to recommended, brings in relevant information from the Microsoft Graph and recommends to me which files that might be useful to me based on what's popular around me. And again, I have that nice file card to give me information about the file, as well as who's viewed it and the different viewers. Pretty awesome, right? So those are 3 ways on how intelligence is infusing the experience to make it easier to find your files so your users can be more productive. We know that the amount of files being created is doubling in the last 18 months and it will continue to grow. So it's more imperative that people can find their files. Now, Mark talked about how OneDrive is not just about your files, but it's about your shared libraries. And so we've done some adjustments to the left nav to really highlight shared libraries. I can say that OneDrive hearts shared libraries now. Before shared libraries were kind of a second-class citizen. We call them sites here before. But now you have a curated list. Before, this list was kind of random. You wouldn't know it would pop up, but we've updated that algorithm. We also have the ability now to pin a library. So if you are working on a specific shared library, you can easily pin it, and it pops to the top. Now, a lot of times I used to have to go to SharePoint to view the rich metadata, the custom columns for shared libraries. But now I can do that right within OneDrive. Here you see I have all the rich custom columns, custom formatting, and I can even do things like filter by, or group by a certain status. And then I can even save that view if I want to get back to it in the future. Now, it used to be that you would have this list of libraries, but maybe you belonged to different teams and you wanted to actually see all the libraries you had access to. Now we have this More Libraries view, which allows you to see basically all the libraries that you have access to. And in some cases, you might want to create a library. Let's say that Lauren and I want to work on a fun project. We have this new experience where instead of creating a whole site, we just show you the bare minimum, and you're able to create a shared library right here from within OneDrive. And this will be a place where we both have permissions and we can upload files together. So I would just type in Fun Squad, and then Lauren, Vice President Lauren.
I want to be fun too.
I don't know if you're in this tenant, Mark. So that's some of the improvements that we've made to make the shared library experience much better within OneDrive, and I can say OneDrive hearts shared libraries. Now, we talked about the 320 plus file previewers that OneDrive supports. That is industry leading. Well, we have a couple new ones to announce this week, and we're really excited about those. One of them is 360-degree viewers. And this is Miami, so I can take a tour of Miami just right from my OneDrive. And it used to be that for files that weren't Office documents, you couldn't comment on them. But now we have the ability, if you just open the details pane, to comment on specific files, and then you can collaborate them with other people. Well, there's one other file type that customers have been asking for many years, and that's DWG and AutoCAD files. So we now provide a viewer for AutoCAD files. Here you can see this is a DWG. It's rendered as a PDF, but I can do things like zoom in on specific things. But if I really want to edit this file or access some of the deep functionality, I can actually open it in AutoCAD, and this was a partnership that we did with the Autodesk team. I'm not going to do the full auth in, but this shows you some of the power that you're able to do within AutoCAD. Things like layers and different blocks. I don't even know what layers are, but it sounds pretty cool. So try out the new AutoCAD previewer. Now, you probably saw in my OneDrive that AutoCAD file was pretty far down on the list, and it was kind of hard for me to find. But I wish there was a way that I could save that file for later. Well, now when I select that file, I actually have a command to save that file for later. So I just click that, and now anytime I want to get back to this file, I don't have to scroll all the way down. It's still there, but it's in my save for later. And I can save files that are not only in OneDrive, but also in shared libraries here. And when I'm done with them, I'm done with this project. I really like tiny houses, but I'm kind of done with this tiny house, so I'm going to remove it from my shared library. So those are some of the ways that we're bringing intelligence and improving the shared library experience. Back to the slides. So just to recap, the Fluent design updates, you saw the beautiful new design from the top, the header to the left nav to the golden folders. You saw recommended, bringing insights and intelligence into the experience with recommended and popular around me. You saw file cart updates with things like time to read and also at a glance. The improved shared library experience for accessing, organizing, and creating new shared libraries. New file previewers, including 360-degree images and AutoCAD files, comments on non-Office files, and save for later. So lots of great stuff. Now I'm going to pass it over to Lauren to cover collaboration.
Thanks, Randy. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Khoo. I'm also a program manager on the OneDrive team. I actually specifically focus on the mobile apps, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. For now, let's go ahead and start with talking about what's new with secure collaboration. Now, we know from you that simple, intuitive collaboration is central for end users to feel productive and empowered in their day-to-day work. But it needs to be secure. Our customers in the financial and medical industries are trusting us with their most sensitive data. So we're investing in sharing experiences that protect that data while making sure that end users still feel confident and in control of their files. We're making progress here. In the last year, we've actually seen the number of customers collaborating on files in OneDrive more than double. There's still work to be done here, though, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the new investments we're making in this space. Go ahead and merge this machine.
And a lot of what you're going to see here is Lauren on Mac. So we're very open to whatever operating system you use.
Awesome. So we hear a lot about a scenario where users need to collaborate with people outside of their organization. Historically, they've done this with attachments. Attachments are easy and intuitive to use, but they're not super secure, and they don't offer much control to the share after you've sent that email. So with that in mind, our goal is to make sharing files with OneDrive as easy to use as attachments, but also give you that increased security and control. So let's take a look at what this might look like in practice. Here I've got this campaign results PowerPoint file that I need to share with someone outside of my organization. Go ahead and select that file, and I'll hit share. Now, once we land here in our sharing experience, I can go ahead and click this box that says anyone with the link can edit to customize these link settings for my exact scenario. In this case, I want this link to work for anyone who gets the link, just like an attachment would. However, I want to add some additional conditions of access just to make sure that my documents are staying secure. First, I don't want my recipients to be able to edit, so I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. And when we do, we now see we have the option to block download. In this example, I don't want my recipients or future recipients to be able to print, download, or even copy and paste content outside of this document. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on block download. I also want their access to be limited. In fact, I'm going to be pretty strict, and I'm going to say that all access needs to happen before this time next week. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this link will stop working on May 29th. And then lastly, I want to make sure that only my trusted intended recipients and their trusted intended recipients, who I believe that they'll need to get this work done, can access this link. So I'm going to go ahead and add a password. In this example, I'm going to optimize for easy typing, so the password's going to be password. It's going to be a little bit weak. The sharing dialog is actually going to warn me that that password is weak and probably encourage me to add a stronger one. For the purpose of this demo, that's fine. I'll go ahead and hit apply. So now when we see the share dialog, we actually see, rather than the old link setting we have, we see a link that works for anyone, but it's view only. It expires on a certain day. It is password protected, and it prevents download. So I'll go ahead and copy that link, and we can take a look at what that recipient experience is going to look like for the person that I'm working with. Go ahead and open a new browser window here. Paste that in. And when we land here, we see that we're immediately prompted for the password. In this case, we are a trusted intended recipient, so we know that super secure password I made. I'm going to go ahead and hit verify. And when I do, I land immediately in the document. There was no need to create an account, no need to sign in, simple as opening an attachment. However, when I land here, I see that indeed, can't edit the file, can only view it, and I don't have permission to download or print. In fact, that print to PDF option is also grayed out. Of course, we also know it's important to be able to track and see which files are shared and how. So we can do that with our new external sharing reports. First, let's take a look at how we might generate one of these reports. I'll go ahead and go to shared in the left nav here, go over to shared by me, and we now see we have this option to run report. Go ahead and click that. And now OneDrive will actually generate a report of all the files in my OneDrive and how they've been shared. I'll then choose a location to save that report. Go ahead and create. Now that takes some time to run, so I've actually gone ahead and ahead of time made that file here. It's pretty dense, a lot of information here, sharing a lot of files. But thankfully, Microsoft gives us the tools to easily visualize and analyze that data. So I've gone ahead and loaded this exact report into Power BI, and I've set up a great visual that helped me understand how my files are shared. I can see that the majority of the links follow the tenant default of they're anonymous. But I also see I've got some that only work for people in my organization, as well as some that only work for specific individuals. If I actually just want to look at the ones that are anonymous, I can click on that section and see this list. And indeed, if we look here, we do see every file that has been shared with an anonymous link. In this case, we actually can see that campaign results file that we just shared anonymously together. So now let's go ahead and land back in OneDrive. And in addition to being able to share files securely, we also know that many users actually need to receive files securely. And in those scenarios, they don't want the people who need to send them files to have any view or edit access to any existing files, or even to really know who else is submitting files. Our new feature, called Request Files, is designed for that exact scenario. Here, I actually have this XT1000 project that I'm working on, and I want to collect feedback from some of my colleagues on how the project is going so far. Feedback, by its nature, can be a little bit sensitive, and so I want to make sure that the colleagues I'm asking for feedback only send me their own feedback, and they can't read anyone else's feedback, things like that. So to do that, all I have to do is select this folder and hit this new command called Request Files. Here, I have the option to specify what files I'm requesting. OneDrive intelligently suggests the name of the destination folder I picked, but I can edit and change that if I would like. In this case, I actually want to specify that I specifically want the project feedback. So I'll go ahead and add that to the request name. So now I'll have the option to either copy a link and send that to my colleagues or send an email. For simplicity, I'll go ahead and copy this link, and we'll take a look at what my colleagues are going to see. Now, in this example, we're going to see this from Randy's perspective, but it's important to note that the Request Files feature will also allow you to request files and receive them from people anonymously, so they don't have to sign in, just like in our demo earlier. Go ahead and, is that an applause? I think I heard applause. Thank you, I appreciate that. So now we'll do our best Randy impression, and we'll see that Lauren Khoo, in her infinite foresight and growth mindset, is requesting feedback on this project. I know exactly what that is, so I'll go ahead and select Files. Here's the feedback that I have written and prepared for her. And because I'm Randy and I'm signed in, I'll see that actually my identity is being automatically filled in for me here. So I'll go ahead and upload that feedback. All right, so now Lauren will actually get a notification that I've uploaded new files. We'll go ahead and jump back into my OneDrive. I'll go back to being my authentic self, and I'll jump into this folder. And indeed, we do see the new file that Randy just uploaded. The name has been updated to include who uploaded that file, so I can identify if I'm receiving multiple files of feedback, which feedback came from whom. And of course, that request files link we just made together in our demo will also appear in those external sharing reports as well. So now we've talked a lot about a lot of these demos in the OneDrive web, but Randy also mentioned that different users and customers like to work in different ways. Many users actually are now preferring the faster-paced communication of teams, and so we want to make sure that no matter where you choose to work, you access your files in a consistent, coherent way. So when we land in Teams over here, I'll open that same shared library that Randy was just demoing earlier. I see pinned files that have been added here. Even if they weren't added in Teams, they'll show up here as well. And I'll get that same beautiful formatting right here in Teams. Again, no matter where I choose to work, all of those file experiences are consistent, and I can collaborate and work on my files the same way. Speaking of collaboration, we're also adding some new features in collaboration on Teams. Here I've got a chat with Megan and Randy, and I actually meant to send them a file earlier, didn't quite get to it, so I'll go ahead and do that now. I can go ahead and hit this paperclip here and have attach, and I have two options. I could upload the file directly from my computer. That will upload to OneDrive and securely share that file with Randy and Megan behind the scenes, or I could browse my OneDrive directly from here. I'll go ahead and do that, and when I land here, I can see that I can scroll down immediately to the file that I would like. In this case, it's that campaign results file we just showed earlier, and I'll go ahead and choose to share a link here. This will drop a beautifully formatted link right here in my message composer. It, by default, will take the tenant sharing defaults that I've set up, but I can go ahead and click on that and edit it if I'd like. Just like we did before, we'll see that consistent sharing experience right here, so I can change those link settings. I actually only want this link to work for Megan and Randy, so I'm actually going to go ahead and change that to people currently in this chat. I want them to be able to edit this and make any changes, so I'll go ahead and leave that checked, and I'll hit apply. And then right there, the link will automatically change right here in my message composer. Go ahead and send that off. Woo-hoo. Thanks, Mark. So now we've shown quite a few demos here in secure collaboration. Let's do a quick recap of all the things we showed. We started off with password-protected links, and we actually added block download to that as well, but you could use those separately if you'd like. We showed you how to generate our new external sharing reports, and then how to open and analyze those in Power BI. We showed you a new way to collaborate on files with our Request Files feature that, again, will work for sighted users as well as anonymous ones. We showed you shared libraries and teams and how that custom formatting will also show up there. And then lastly, we showed you how we are adding some new link settings into Teams when you share a link in a chat. So now let's switch over a little bit and talk about what we're doing to working on the go. How many of you are either using Outlook Mobile or OneDrive Mobile today? Any takers? Wow, a lot of you. OK, so this whole room is excited for all the changes we're bringing to working on the go. Now, what could be more essential to working on the go than email? So let's go ahead and switch over to quick recap, a reminder of where we were. Someone was bugging me to send them a file. In this case, that someone was Randy, and he was asking me for the latest improvement plan for the ZT series. That's a project we're working on together. Not as fun as the Fun Squad, but we try. So I'll go ahead and start composing my reply. I'll hit that paperclip here, and I'll see I have the option to attach file. I'll do that, and when I get here, I see a OneDrive-powered file picking experience right here in Outlook Mobile. At the top, I can see my recent files, and as Mark mentioned, this recent list is pulling from activity across Office 365. So whether I'm working in Teams or OneDrive or one of the Office clients, all of that activity is going to be piped through here into this recent file list. If I don't see the file I'm looking for here, I can browse my individual library here under Files and see the files in my OneDrive, or I could browse to a shared library, like the sales and marketing one we've been demoing out of earlier. In this case, I actually know the file that Randy wants is something I've been recently working on, so I'll go ahead and find those improvements on the ZT series he's asking for. Go ahead and select that, and I have the option to either attach a copy or insert a link. In this case, I actually want us all to work on the same document, and so I'll choose to share that with a link. Go ahead and insert that here, and we'll get a beautifully formatted link right here in my message that obeys my tenant sharing defaults, and so I can go ahead and have full control over that link even after I've sent this email. Now, in addition to bringing an improved OneDrive file experience into Outlook Mobile, we're also bringing an improved OneDrive file experience to OneDrive Mobile. Hopefully that doesn't surprise anybody here. Now, I actually personally work on the OneDrive mobile apps in my day-to-day, so it's especially exciting for me to be up here showing off what we've been working on. Over the past several months, we've been tailoring our experience to make it even easier to get back to your files. We've made relatively big changes, like bringing in these large headers that you just saw in Outlook, to actually create this frictionless experience when users need to switch apps. We've also done things like bring in those beautiful golden folders that Randy was showing us on web, as well as profile picture support, so I can easily find which account that I'm in. Again, all of these changes designed to make a beautiful experience that actually helps you get back to your files. Now, the changes we've been making aren't just visual, they're also functional. As Mark alluded to earlier, we have been investing heavily in this recent experience here. We know that it's important to have a consistent, quick, recent list that actually shows the files you've been working on most recently. However, we also know that true mobile-first files experiences are about more than just anywhere access. They're also about using the amazing cameras on our phones and those powerful touchscreens to annotate and just do work on the go. So to bring all of those things together, we're investing in bringing scans and recently viewed PDFs into your recent view. So let's take a look at what this looks like. I'll go ahead and scan this convenient paper I have here that I want my team to look at. Go ahead and launch our scan experience here from that prominent scan button. And oh, look at that, it's a session list. Shocking. OK, I'm going to go ahead and hit done. And I actually want to save this in a shared library I have with my team, where we're tracking the session schedules and making sure we cover and go to all the most important sessions. I've actually saved to there recently, and I can go ahead and add some custom metadata that's available on this shared library. I do want my team to review this, so I'm going to leave that as yes. Review should be really snappy, so I'm going to go ahead and say that. So 1 out of 10 on effort. Status is that I'm still waiting for their review, and I'll go ahead and leave that name as is and hit scan. So that'll start uploading immediately right into this destination that I've chosen, this folder within a shared library called SPC19 Sessions of Interest. Now let's say sometime later, I'm walking around and I realize that I actually want to highlight and emphasize the particular session that I scanned this document for. So I'll go ahead and rather than having to go to the Libraries tab, find that shared library, and find that exact folder, I actually see that scan appearing at the very top of my recent list. Go ahead and tap that. And very quickly, that'll just open that file right there. Again, 1 tap needed. So I'll go ahead and actually annotate and highlight that session of interest. And when we land here, we see that we're actually updating the PDF annotation experience as well. Over the last several months, we've been thinking hard about what a truly mobile-first PDF annotation experience looks like, and we're making some changes. We're bringing core functionality like drawing and highlighting to the forefront, And we're making just this whole interface more simple, intuitive, and friendly for doing on a small screen on the go. So I'll go ahead and actually zoom in to this one particular session. Oh, it's about mobile. I'll go ahead, highlight that. Looks great. Make sure my team sees it so that we send someone to that session. Great. So now my annotations are saved. Again, right there, all from recent. So we've shown a lot on the mobile demos. Let's, if we dare, switch to slides. Awesome. So we showed the new OneDrive file picking experience right there in Outlook Mobile. We talked about the new iOS redesign efforts that we've done, bringing in those large headers, golden folders, profile picture support, all of those things. We talked about the new recent view and how we're bringing another applause. I keep going over your applause, but feel free to clap. That's great. We talked about the new recent, and we showed how scans and viewed PDFs appear right there at the top. And then lastly, we showed our new PDF annotation experience. So we've done a lot on mobile. I personally would love for more of you to join us on the journey. So if you're not already, download the OneDrive iOS and Android apps just from those app stores. And with that, I'll go ahead and take it and switch it back to Randy.
You guys like those demos? Good stuff, right? Well, we couldn't help it. You know, we've been getting this question for the last 3 years. When is the sync client going to work for VDI? And today we have some good news. We're going to actually demo it. So here I am on just a normal Windows 10 desktop. I have files on demand set up. I just take a mental snapshot of what's on this desktop. Let's say yesterday I wasn't preparing for my talk and accidentally threw my laptop or dropped it in the pool. And I needed to get some work done. And my IT staff had to go spin up a VM and a virtual desktop for me. Well, I could do that, they would do that, and I could, on any device, whether it be an iOS device, an Android device, a PC or a Mac, I could remote desktop into that machine. So here I'll initiate that process. So behind the covers, a lot of things are happening. There's the user profile, which based on acquisition that we had with FS Logics, stores a lot of that profile information. So you see waiting for FS Logic apps and services. It's pulling in my user settings based on my AAD and also group policies based on the company that it's set up. And some of those group policies could also apply to sync, things like known folder move, team site auto mount. So it's spinning up this virtual desktop for me. And again, Windows Virtual Desktop, non-persistent VDI, multi-session, and you can see it's starting to come up. And how I know that this is actually a WVD, you can see in right here, WVD self-host, but I can also look and see that this is a multi-session. So if I go into Task Manager and look at different users, you can see there's 4 other people or 3 other people on this connected to this session. And the other thing you just saw was this little sync client is logging in right now. And because of known folder move, I have all of my desktop files here, the same files that were on that previous machine that fell in the pool. But I also have all of my content across sync because of files on demand. It doesn't have to pull and sync all the files. I just have the cloud-only versions. Additionally, with a feature called Team Site Auto Mount, I also have some of my shared library content. In this case, I have my sales and marketing content that you saw earlier with Lauren. So the amazing thing is it works. And you know, it took us a long time to get to this place. I almost cried the first time I saw it working. So back to the slides. So some more information. Windows Virtual Desktop Public Preview is available now. Super easy to set up and administer. It's really built for multi-session, non-persistent VDI. With FS Logics, you know, that it really optimizes the experience for Office and especially OneDrive. You know, it's been a big effort for the team, and we're excited for you guys to try it out. I'll pass it back to Mark now.
Yeah. So as you share and work together on files in Microsoft 365, we've got 3 first-class apps that help you, that have consistent, intelligent file experiences and are powered by an intelligent content service on the back end. Just to navigate through this so that we ground what is the role of each of these apps, With OneDrive, it's your Files app in Microsoft 365 that will help you work with all of your files. And certainly this gives you the ability to create and view, to share, to do all the things that you saw across web and mobile, PC, Mac, to be able to take your work with you offline. But it is something that helps you navigate to all of those files that may be stored from a team perspective as a shared library through Microsoft Teams, or in SharePoint document libraries, also shared libraries, bringing those together in a unified view so you can access all the files that you need to work with. Again, with a consistent experience and a consistent content service that powers it. If you want to build those business applications, use metadata, use Power Apps and Flow, you can do that and not feel left behind because you're navigating from one user experience to the other. But OneDrive is that Files app for Microsoft 365. When you look at what is the role of Teams, Teams certainly has a Files role and a way beyond Files role. So if you think about it from a Files perspective, in a channel, there's a Files tab, and that Files tab now has a great new Files experience to work with your files as you would expect, with all the rich metadata and actions that you could take to work across your team. But beyond Files, certainly you use it to work with in meetings, one-to-one chat, and to bring in these collaborative workspaces to build with both internal Microsoft 365 applications and third-party applications to build out these rich, customizable hubs for teamwork. A hub for teamwork. If you look at then the role of SharePoint in the mix, SharePoint certainly from a files perspective is that content service that's powering each of OneDrive and Teams. And beyond the files view, it's certainly where you're going to find your portals, your templates. When you get SharePoint home site, that's where going to be powered by SharePoint. The news, the lists, everything that you would build to build out your intranet in a modern way will be powered by SharePoint. And it's also delivering that consistent content service to OneDrive and Teams. So if you look across both of them, or sorry, all three of them, you'll see that when we talk about intelligent file experiences, we mean everything you saw in the demo. We have 320 plus file viewers now that when you're in any of these applications looking at files in a channel, whether you're looking at it through your OneDrive or you're directly in a SharePoint document library, even if it's not connected to a group, you'll have these great file viewer experiences. You'll be able to share coherently. So if I do it once, I'll be able to do it no matter where I do it from, even from my desktop. You'll have the same sharing experience like you saw in web and mobile. And certainly when it comes to search, through Microsoft Search, powering the experience, you'll have a consistent experience to be able to find the content that matters to you and streamline processes if you want to build on top of that based on certain criteria or flows that you actively build. From a content service perspective, we build this off of our AI engine, the Microsoft Graph on the back end. And we want to give you that consistent experience to have a great out-of-box experience that feels secure. And you can take extra measures to build DLP policies, rights management protection, and to be able to do anything that you could do from an information protection across your entire suite and adhere that to however you build out your governance plan. None of these apps will break those inheritance of what those permissions have been set. And we want to do that in a coherent way so that when you're working with your files, and again, you turn to some other user interface in the life cycle, you may start off in OneDrive and graduate at some point down where you're working in teams collaboratively with a lot of people, that shared access, to then publish something and deem it final in a record center or a document center in SharePoint. We want those to be consistent experiences so that people don't get lost, and so that, of course, it's confidence in terms of how it's being stored in the same fashion. But again, look across these not as one versus the other, but all three working better together to give you that great sharing and working together experience in Microsoft 365.
So we're reaching the home stretch. We just want to thank all of you, customers, partners. The product wouldn't be where it is today without you. We appreciate the feedback. It helps us get the product better. We want to highlight just 4 customers today that have really embraced OneDrive as part of their digital transformation. And we hope that you take a few lessons back to your companies, and next year that we see you up on this list. The first one's Accenture. Hundreds of thousands of employees, hundreds of thousands of OneDrive users, over a couple petabytes of storage, and a couple things that have really led to their success is from the top down. Their CTO is a huge OneDrive fan, and he really helped push it in the organization. And then secondly, as part of their Windows 7 to Windows 10 migration, they really embraced OneDrive and told users, if you want to keep any files, you got to put them in OneDrive. Chevron's another case study. I met Randall last year at SPC19, and we chatted. They were trying to move from file shares and home drives, and they really embraced OneDrive for collaboration, but also for sync, and we've seen a lot of great uptake with them. Another one is Walmart. 2.2 million employees. They're one of the largest retailer in the United States and in the world, and they've really embraced Microsoft and specifically OneDrive as part of their digital transformation. This picture is from one of their innovation centers in Austin, and they're really trying to transform retail with OneDrive as one of the centerpieces. And then lastly, this is one of our most recent case studies, Cox Automotive. Probably more recognizable brand for them is AutoTrader and Kelley Blue Book. But a couple great things that came out of their case study. One is they were able to migrate off of Box in a weekend. Second, they're using known folder move, so they have 17,000 users using known folder move. And then thirdly, they're embracing the mobile apps and mobile productivity. So we know that the journey to the cloud is a long one, and we want to partner with you on that journey. We have a lot of adoption resources and best practices that we've been taking back to other customers, and we recommend that you check out some of these resources, and there's also a session later today to learn more about this. And now time to get out your phones. This is the roadmap. The first column are things that you're going to see in the next month or so. So very soon, things like recommended, file card, comments on non-office files, the previewers. These are all going to show up on the web in your experiences. And then other things like the recent view in mobile, some of the external sharing reports. So watch out, great stuff coming. The middle column are things that you can think about as the second half of the calendar year. And those are things like the request files, popular around me. These are things that you can expect to see rolling out in the next few quarters. And then we have a new category which we're calling top of mind. These are things that we know we're going to get questions on. They're top of mind for us. We are actively have engineering looking at them. Things like sync health admin reporting. We're actually doing some user focus groups this week to learn more about the user needs. Large file sizes. Today we're at 15 gigs. We're trying to bump up that limit. Metadata support. We have some support within OneDrive for SharePoint, but we want to improve that experience. And then dual use value is really the use of consumer and commercial and how those worlds collide and work better together. And now I'll pass it back to Mark to close us.
Before we talk about related sessions, because there are a lot of great related sessions that go into a lot of depth on where we started. If you want to learn more about external sharing or the depth of sharing, if you want to learn more about OneDrive on the go, if you're in charge of rolling out OneDrive and you're an IT person, that would be something that you might want to learn how to deploy and get ready to build out and move your files and migrate. But then on the landing part, you might want to learn about adoption. So there's two great sessions that go pretty hand in hand where you see deployment and then adoption. Without adoption, certainly, you don't get a whole bunch of value out of OneDrive. And we've seen with a lot of great adoption planning, promotion, and training internally that it really increases the use of OneDrive, which of course is the part that we are happy about. But we do see that when you start using and collaborating, that people get more productive and feel more connected. So there's a lot of great sessions. We hope that you go to them. If you aren't able to go to all of them, roll the dice and see who from your team goes to one and the other and then share your notes. A number of them will be recorded. This session is being recorded. And a lot of the news that we released yesterday, if you go to the OneDrive blog at aka.ms/OneDrive/blog, you'll see the one single blog that we put out yesterday that has the soup to nuts announcements from what you saw in the keynote, what you saw here, and a few other things as well. I want to note just one more thing on that slide. We do have an AMA tomorrow at 4:45 p.m., and you can pre-submit your questions. And based on your questions, we're going to help grab the right people to be up on stage to be able to address those questions. So if you have a burning question about OneDrive or really anything that you saw here at the conference, submit that question. Go to the AMA tomorrow at 4:45 p.m. And before we go through a couple of links, I do want to let you know that we've got a couple of giveaways here. And we've got time maybe for 2 questions before we close out. But on the stage left and the stage right, if you're interested in some new OneDrive socks, just come and get them. They're just sitting out here. There's one here, and one here. Oh, careful. But they're pins as well. So we'll take time, obviously, to point you out to where you can get some resources. You can always ask. This is for the first question. Do you have a question?
I do.
What's your question?
My question is, when you create those shared libraries,
Yes.
where is the library actually created?
Ooh, great question. I told you it would come up. So the question was, when you create a shared library, you saw the new experience to create a shared library, where is it actually getting created? Certainly under the covers, it's creating a new shared library, and it's actually creating a new Office 365 group, but you only see the shared library show up in the list, so it's a very quick experience. Name your library, it does and go and generates the provisions, the group, and that shared library will show up in the list right there.
Under the covers, it's a full site collection.
Yep. And we'll certainly take other questions, and I'll try to do them verbally. But we are at the time, so if you have a session that you want to run to, it's not close, we certainly are mindful of that. We're going to be here to take questions, but we'll take a couple so that if anybody is staying, we'll certainly address them and answer them. And yes, of course. Thank you for coming.